Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 203 of Manage the Wild. I'm your host, Nick Matson. Today, we're going to be talking about elk behavior, the rut, and the sexual behavior and how it's being influenced by all the different hunting. We know that elk respond to hunting pressure. They move really well. And there are areas nearby where I live where the elk now move before the hunts even start in August. They are fully aware of where the private is. They are fully aware of where pressure is and isn't going to be. If you'll remember Randall McBride, we had him on the podcast earlier. He did his research and he just published his thesis. And he talked about how what he was looking at is whether elk were being influenced by hunter movement, how much influence was that playing a part in. And what he found out is that elk respond to predation and they avoid those risk associated landscapes. They avoid predators such as humans, and they move a heck of a lot more when hunters are present. When avoiding those risk associated landscapes, elk start moving away from areas like roads or open meadows. They start staying away from fields. They start picking deeper, thicker canyons, heavier tree cover. They're just, in general, trying to get away from people. They're moving away from predators, and the majority of the predators that they're moving from are people. We just bombard the landscape with hunters in the fall. August, September, October, November, December, we are just bombarding that landscape with hunters, and they are moving. Cow elk moved more when the hunters were present, and then they reduced their movement once they got about a kilometer away. So elk have a pretty good understanding of how far they need to be from people to be safe, and they also are very understanding of how they need to survive and the landscape and the type of things that they are looking for. The other thing that I'm kind of interested in, and I'm doing a little bit of research on, is the effects that hunting has on sexual reproduction. One of the factors that if we're creating this landscape of fear with all these hunters going out on the landscape, there's got to be some cows that aren't being serviced by males because they're constantly moving from one area to another. They're constantly being shot from August all the way to December. And so there's during the peak rut, which is coming up right about now for the area that I live in for elk, they're being bombarded. There's archery hunts going on. There's cow depredation hunts that are happening, and they're just being pushed. And so I wonder what happens as you start pushing these animals during these times of the rut. Is behavior changing? And I believe that behavior is changing because there's a drainage that I go to when I want to watch elk or deer, and it's a large drainage, and there's very little access to it, and it's a good place to watch animals. And over the last 3 weeks, I've witnessed a change. These animals were out and about; they were out on the ridges, and now they are in that deep, thick timber. They're in those conifers, and they're not coming out. They're not even going into the aspens. They've moved into those deep conifers, thick conifers. And the other thing that I haven't heard lately, and I know it's starting and the young ones should be, but there's not a whole lot of bugling going on. There is an area that I was at, though, before light. It was pitch black, and you could hear the elk bugling. But the elk stopped bugling as soon as that sun started to come up. So I know that behavior is shifting. Are they doing a lot of the rutting at night? I'm going to have to do more research, but that's one of the questions I have. Are the elk moving about doing the rutting at night? And it seems to me that elk are more affected by hunting pressure, maybe just because there's overall pressure being put on chasing elk than other species. Maybe deer just aren't as aware, but like moose, they just keep going on like nothing's different, everything's normal. But elk have changed their behavior. And have they changed it so much that you're going to start seeing negative consequences? Now, you wouldn't see it after 1 year, but what about 5, 6, 10 years down the road with this constant pressure? Is there going to be some negative effects? Research has also showed that there is negative effects when you start harvesting a bunch of really mature animals and you start driving that age gap down. Let's say you're targeting 4.5 to 5 year olds for management, and all of a sudden you start dropping down into that 3.5 and then 3 year. Is there going to be some changes in the rut as well? And research does show that there are some negative consequences, that the males start rutting later or earlier, and they may not be able to cover all the females. And so there is some negative consequences of hunting as far as what they do to a population in whole. And I'm just curious, as I dig in and do more research, is it going to show that there's even more negative consequences than what I've known before? That's what I got for you guys today. Have a great day. Stay wild.